All right. Well, my name is Josh Storey. I'm been a longtime football coach in Georgia. Um, I've coached pretty much all over the state of Georgia. Uh, Most recently, I was at Miller County High School, which is a little single A school in Southwest Georgia. But I'm here really to talk about my time at Seminole County and some things that we did and some things that I experienced as a member of the staff at Seminole County. Uh, Thanks to Coach Kirby for having me on. So at 2017, I was hired as the offensive line coach at Seminole County High School, which is in Donaldsonville, Georgia. I currently live in Blakely, Georgia, and that's when I tell people I live in Southwest Georgia. I live in Southwest Georgia. Um, I'm about 3 hours from Atlanta. I can be in Alabama in about 15 minutes and Florida in about 45 minutes. And Seminole County is even further southwest. Donaldsonville is in that southwest corner of Georgia where Georgia, Alabama, and Florida meet. Um, so I was hired there. And when I got hired, my head coach contacted me and said, "We are going to run the single wing." And I asked him if it was still the 1920s or was it, 2017. And he said, "Well, we don't really have a quarterback. We've got a guy who would be our number one running back, but he can throw it around a little bit. He's not good enough of a thrower to really turn it loose. He's not a gunslinger, but he can throw it enough. But he's really an athlete, and we want to get it in his hands and we've got a good supporting cast around him." So we started running Rick Darlington's single wing when he was at Apopka, Florida. He won several state championships and was very successful there. He was at Enterprise for a few years, Enterprise, Alabama, and Lord, I don't know where he's at now. I know he left Enterprise, but this was when he was still at Apopka, and we started running his system. Um, so what I'm really here for is to talk about my experience with that single wing. Um, so to start, the single wing now is a rare offense, and what really the key behind it was nobody within like 100 miles of us even thought about running the single wing. Here in Georgia, you've got a lot of spread teams, you've got a lot of wing tee teams, you've got a lot of pro style and veer, but nobody really running the single wing. So we learned quickly that going into coaches meetings, you really didn't have um, you didn't have any film. Like you had a guess. Our coaches, like that first bullet point says, our coaches meetings were educated guesses. So we'd watch their film and we'd see what they were running, what their base front was, and we'd say, well, if I'm a defensive coordinator, how would I line up to this? And we'd come up with 2 to 3 different fronts that they would run, that we thought they would run. We'd come up with 2 or 3 fronts they would run, and we'd kind of we'd line up against that all week. So we'd guess what they were running, but then it was really a lot of in-game adjustments. It was a lot of making sure what they were lining up to and how they were doing things. I preached to my offensive linemen that they really had to tell me what they were seeing. Like I had obviously I'm saying on the sideline, I have a general idea of what they're seeing, but they had to confirm what I'm seeing. And the first 2 drives really told us a lot. The first drive was okay, this is what I see. This is what y'all are seeing, and they'd adjust me what I draw up on the board. The second drive confirmed it, and then from there on, it was on. Because the single wing's a unique offense. You're gonna see. I've got an example play to show you what I mean by that. It forces defenses to do some things that they don't normally do. So it really forces them to simplify because they're not gonna see they can't run the same thing they run the week before or the same thing they're planning to run the week after. They've got to really simplify what they're doing to exploit some things that we do. And I'll give you an example. I found an old diagram that I had. He called this 4. This is an ISO play that we'd run. And against this defense, you're seeing we lined it up against a 4-3. The thing that we started doing is instead of showing this sweep play right here, and black is the one getting the ball, instead of the sweep play, green would actually be the one to get the ball, and black would be an insert lead blocker. So whereas like a normal, this is more of a traditional, ISO. We've got one blocker up on the linebacker. We'd have 2 sometimes. We have a like a plus call or an extra call or whatever, where we would actually have 2 blockers at the point of attack instead of 1 with the runner behind them. And so what it forces defenses they can take on an ISO, no problem. That's not an issue. But then they got to take on an ISO with an extra blocker. It's kind of like blocking power I all game. But we had some, Darlington called them deal breakers or something breakers, where you had wrinkles and adjustments you can make, and these were things that he did, and we stuck to some of those. We had some of those, but this was one of those that we just turned it into an all the time thing. Having 2 blockers at the point of attack is an example of a way that this offense is unique. So then that was our 2017 season. 2018, that the kid that I told you about, he left. That senior group, that we had a really good senior group. They all left, but we had 2 really good running backs. We had they were both about 6 feet tall, about over 200 pounds apiece. I've got we had video of one of them called like an out route and just outrun everybody for a touchdown. They were bigger, they were stronger, they were faster generally than you were. So we still stuck to our single wing principles, but we kind of got more into I formation, power I stuff. We moved onto that. So 2018 rolls around, and we're in the middle of football season, and I'm telling you this so I can set up while we were in. The next thing I'm going to talk about is our Sumo Formation. But in October 2018, Seminole County was the entire North Florida and Southwest Georgia was hit by Hurricane Michael. Hurricane Michael hit Panama City, moved up the Panhandle and crossed over into Georgia. The eye of the hurricane went directly over Donaldsonville, and it went through Southwest Georgia. It it devastated our community. Our kids, I know what I went through, Coach, and I couldn't imagine what being 16, 17 years old and trying to deal with all that. We didn't go to school for like a month because our buildings were damaged. There were places at Seminole County, even when we came back to school a month later, still didn't have electricity. The National Guard was called in. This is the picture. This is our team right here. And in front of the tanker truck that was parked outside for the National Guard. National Guard used our school as like a base of operations. Our parking lot was big enough. It was an interesting time because we had kids that like we didn't have power in our field house. Kids didn't have power at home, so like doing simple things like washing clothes was a task in and of itself. But we stuck through it and we made it. Hurricane Michael hit on a Wednesday, and my wife and I left that Thursday and we went to my in-laws house. And then that Sunday I got the message that we were going to be back at practice on like that Tuesday. So we kept trying to practice and kept trying to do our first game. Coming back was on like a Thursday afternoon, in the middle of the afternoon at Randolph Clay High School. Some parts of Randolph County still had electricity. They didn't have electricity to their field, so we couldn't play at night. And we went and did very well. And then we had a game against Pelham, or a game against Mitchell County. I'm sorry, Mitchell County, that we had to reschedule. So this is where the Sumo Formation comes in. We played Randolph Clay on a Thursday. We played Mitchell on like a Tuesday night at a neutral site because their field doesn't have power either. So we played at Hugh Mills Stadium in Albany, Georgia, on a Tuesday night, and we're sitting there after the Randolph game, and we're watching what film we can on Mitchell County. We identified that they had a really good defense. They had an exceptional offense. So we thought of a way. We were brainstorming ways to keep the ball out of their hands. We wanted to keep the ball out of their hands, and we wanted to do something that was just different enough that it would fool them, but it was simple enough that our kids could pick up on it. And we rolled out this formation. This was our brainchild right here. We called this Sumo. And we called it Sumo because, just like what I said, it's a big formation. And I'll get into our personnel in just a second. Like I said, Mitchell County had a great offense and a good defense. So we wanted something simple and something that matched our personnel. So this is like a bastardization of that single wing. The thing that made it for us, the two upbacks right here. We had a normal 7-man, 2 tight end offensive line. Still had our normal guards and tackles. The two upbacks were my number 6 and number 7 offensive linemen, who are also our defensive linemen. And those H and the F right there is our big backs. Those 2 big backs that I told you about. The key is kind of in the symmetry of the formation. We still have a ton of blockers coming at you. Also, if you'll notice, the H and the F are off centered. They're not directly behind the center, and that's because that's a feature of the single wing, is that you don't have your back who catches the ball is already on a running start by the time he catches the ball, because he has to take 2 steps left or right to get into the line of the snap, and by that time he's already running. He's either running, side to side for a sweep or for a power. He's already sidestepped and is ready to go for an ISO or a sidestep, and he's ready to go for a counter. Our 4 plays that we really ran out of it, we had our power play, which really turned into more like a power play. I think maybe we had we motioned one of the backs away, so we had a pull and a kicker. I think we could even run like a plus or an extra, like I talked about before, where the F, like let's say we're running power right, the F would insert himself and be an extra blocker on that power. We had a counter play. The counter play would look like a sweep play or the ISO or power, where we'd step into the snap and then turn, and almost like a counter handoff where he steps into it and then steps away, except he's now catching the ball and stepping back towards the counter play. We had our ISO plays, which you saw before as an example, and a sweep play where we're out in front. If you're not, it almost looks like a pin and pull, where if you're not really blocking, you're pulling. The front side guard pulls and gets out in front, gets as many as they can, gets as many blockers out in front of that runner as possible. The way we broke that up is motion. You can motion the backs, run a flare motion. You can run a move one to the other side. You motion the up backs over. I think we had wrinkles like we call sumo, like green or black, and because we were green and black like you saw in our picture. So green, we'd have both of them on the right. Black, we'd have both of them on the left. Or you could motion them over. I can't remember what exactly we called it, but we, on the ready, that up back starts sliding over, and then they snap the ball and go. Just like the year before, those guys weren't quarterbacks, but they were good enough to throw it. So we still had our play action pass game. We had an example. I can't remember what we called it. I think it was like Kansas or something like that. It was like a go, and the tight ends go. Maybe one goes, and the other runs a post. That F will run a wheel. So it's like a stretch, 3 deep stretch. We had our flares, our out routes. The tight ends are still eligible receivers. The 2 up backs, they didn't have numbers, so they really weren't eligible receivers. But you can make them eligible receivers. You give your D linemen, 40 numbers, and they're eligible receivers. Those 2 that we had, they were not receivers in the least bit, so we didn't even consider that. But the symmetry of it, the single wing of it, is those backs are still offset, and that was kind of the key. You really didn't know who was getting it because both of them were equal. I mean, they obviously they had their strengths and their weaknesses, but as far as how we use them in a run game, they were both equally used. If one had 10 carries, the other had 12 carries, or if one had 20 carries, the other had 19. In our regular offense, they would even switch between play. Like they'd get in the huddle and they'd go, I carried it last time, you carry it this time, and want to be at fullback, want to be at tailback. that was an awesome season. Those dudes were some awesome dudes. Um, and so that was our sumo formation. And if I'm remembering right, we stuck with Mitchell County, and I think Mitchell County won the region that year. We stuck with them, and it came down to like a blocked field goal. They blocked one of our field goals, and I don't think they ran it back, but they denied us an opportunity to score, and that was the difference in the game because we marched down the field on we 3 yards in a cloud of dust to them, and uh, they'd get the ball, run verts, score on us. And then we'd come back and we'd take 10 minutes on a drive, and then they'd score on us. Um, so it was a solid game plan. It was a really simple thing to do, but it provided enough of a wrinkle that, like I said, we pretty much run it the whole game. Um, and but that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for that single wing the year before. So that's our sumo formation.
All right, hey coach, thanks for doing this. Tell us where we can find out more about you. If you got anything to promote, anything like that, we can put that down in the description below.
Uh, the only thing I really have is my Twitter handle is at JCSECGSU.
Awesome. Well, coach, we're going to put that in the description below. I appreciate you coming on and doing this. This is good stuff. And coaches, if you would hit the like and subscribe button, that would really help us out. And we will see you in the next video.